Next on Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly, head coach of Old Glory DC, Simon Cross, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, and Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Let's get it started with Rugby Morning's Coffee Break with John Fitzpatrick calling in from his bunker in Washington, D.C. John, welcome back. How are you? Where are you?
I'm in an undisclosed location in the heart of Washington, D.C. I cannot give it out, but it's a couple miles north of the White House.
Wow. If only we didn't have to talk rugby, then maybe we could talk about real stuff, but we're going to talk about rugby instead. What do you got for us, John?
Huge season. Is that not good?
That was awful.
It's so bad.
Like Vinny Gumbats.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do?
All right. So other than bad impersonations, what do you have?
Yeah. Bad hair covered up by a nice hat. What do you got? But hey, Matt, there's one thing I did want to bring up, and we've got a couple more MLR preseason games, but the big one that I want to talk about is Friday night clash, Friday night footy, if you will, if you're down in Australia. That would be the New England Free Jacks taking on the Miami Sharks. Matt, this is going to be our first look at the New England Free Jacks coming off back-to-back championships. Of course, they're going for the 3-peat. Pat Riley don't mind the use of the trademark. But, Matt, will we see Vian Conradi, who tore his ACL last year? Perhaps we'll see the return of him. We may see some new backline configuration, right? No Reese McDonald. He's been shipped out to Los Angeles. Matt, how you feeling about the Free Jacks' chances of a 3-peat this year?
I think they're pretty good. I think there's like 3, 4, 5 teams that you could say have a shot, and everybody wants to gun for the champion, right? So heavy that crown. But they got through it last year, so they had that experience of defending the crown. And you've got some guys that have now gotten healthy. Leroux Milan is now, again, another season removed from that injury at the World Cup, so he should be great. Vanderbank played himself into the lineup. You've got depth basically at every position for the Free Jacks, which is amazing.
I mean, the back row, let's just talk about the depth in the back row. Joe Johnston's come back, and now they got Geronimo Gomez-Vara, one of my favorite players in MLR. That
was my favorite player in the MLR. He was our number one pick last year in the Fantasy Rutgers draft.
No, it wasn't. You drafted the
All right, so I'm lying. Just move on.
I'll tell you what, one player that may not be on the Miami Sharks roster, and that'd be center Scotland international Nick Gregg, who may be being announced as joining Old Glory DC. Matt, what do you think of that?
Well, you got the Scottish Rugby Union with in cahoots with DC, so that would make sense. It would make sense. And we don't have that definitive at this taping, but it looks like it's going to happen. All right, next.
Matt, I just want to close out on this since we're talking Scotland here. Scotland probably will not get the wooden spoon at the Six Nations because it's got to be Wales. Matt, is this Warren Gatlin's last hike out with Wales this weekend?
Are you dismissing the Italians? Because they're the perennial wooden spoon winners, so Scotland hasn't been in jeopardy of the wooden spoon in a while. Are you not up on your Six Nations? And Warren Gatlin is playing a bunch of young guys. And Jack Morgan, the captain of Wales, is like a combination of Rudy meets Rocky. And he had like 155 tackles or was all over the pitch. But they got destroyed. And he looked like he had one heck of a day. So Wales, they're prime for the wooden spoon. They're prime. All right. Anything else?
Hey, Matt, yeah, maybe I'll see you at the Pig and Whistle this weekend.
Maybe. And you know what? Maybe you'll see Simon Cross as you're exiting through the studio because he's in the green room.
Hey, Simon.
All right. On that note,
Simon says,
take a break. And we'll be right back with Simon Cross, the head coach of Old Glory DC, after this.
Digs like a demented mole there.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com. If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
How you doing? I'm Jim Hamilton. I'm at the Pig and Whistle. I'm at the famous Pig and Whistle. Look, I've got my rucksack on. I'm a well-known man around the world as one of the best rugby players to have ever played the game. No, I'm not. It's a lie. But we've got Paul O'Connell's montage on the wall. I've heard a lot about this place, and I'm here. Make sure, though, that you come here, but you also tune in to Rugby Wrap Up.
And we are back, and we're back with the head coach of Old Glory DC, Mr. Simon Cross. Simon, welcome back to MLR Weekly.
Thank you, Matt. Nice to see you. Happy New Year, sir.
Likewise. And
can't wait.
Coach, what's the shot clock on wishing somebody a Happy New Year? Is it...
Well, there's a new season. It's a new season, so we're getting ready for that. That's what... yeah.
All right, and what better way to start a new season on Valentine's Day weekend? Is there a special feeling in your heart for this upcoming game?
I didn't even know it was Valentine's Day, so I think you've got me out of trouble there. So I'm to pop down this shop. Yeah, we've got bigger things. And Miami's the only thing really on our mind at the moment, so looking forward to that.
Year 2 of the Cross administration, and you are in D.C. There's all kinds of political buildings around. What initiatives are new to the organization as per you, sir, the head coach?
Well, I think, do you know what's really nice is not very much is new. And I'm hoping that consistency is going to be our friend this year, so coaching staff are all the same. The majority of the players are the same. I think we've only we've lost 11 or 12 guys, and most of those guys didn't contribute a huge amount to the playing minutes from last year. We've only brought 3 or 4 guys in. So yeah, I'm hoping that nothing new is going to be our thing this year. I think the level of consistency around the coaching and the playing staff is the thing that's going to be our friend this year for me.
So continuity versus turnover.
Correct. Yeah, I think this is the first time that Old Glory's had a really, settled roster for a few years. So that's the thing for me, that players understand what we're after. We understand our players better. We've managed to upgrade our training facilities now. We're very much in the St James day in, day out, as opposed to sort of flitting between the St James and George Mason. But we're in a good spot. I feel like we've upgraded our playing roster. We've brought in 2 or 3 really outstanding humans into the building who are going to add on and off the field. And yeah, we're excited about the
and who are those humans?
The league starting. Well, we've got Steph Hughes has come in from the Dragons, who I worked with for a couple of years. He's an outside centre or he's a centre, but he's an excellent player, good leader. He'll be one of our vice captains. Jace Emery's come in. He's got great experience of the league, but not only the MLR. He's obviously played at a very high level in New Zealand as well. Good knowledge of the game. And I just, like I said, we've kept all of our big leaders from last year. Rob Harley's going to be our captain this year, and alongside Jammer and Steph as the 2 vice captains. And I think we're just in a really good space.
At this taping, it's a rumor, but is Nick Grigg coming to you guys?
That's a good rumor. You have to wait and see.
You cheeky bird, you. Okay, all right.
I like Nick. Nick's a good guy. Nick would be an excellent acquisition for anybody. So we'll see. Watch your space.
My guess is he's going to be in red, white, and blue, not in New England, but in the nation's capital. That's just my guess, folks. So we don't know.
He's very good friends with Rob Harley, by all accounts. So I've heard. I don't know these things. We'll see.
So, Coach, with your roster, it's a good one. You got the continuity. What's the brand of rugby you guys are looking to play?
So last year was a heavy focus on the set piece side of things in defence. It was a big shift from where Old Glory's been in the past. I suppose we talked about trying to win games more sort of the 9-6 versus the 45-43. I think this year we're going to open up our game a little bit. So I think you can expect to see a bit more rallying rugby from us this year. And that speaks to some of the selections and some of the signings we brought in around the Steph Hughes and Jace Emerys of this world.
Because I remember last year you said you had players with great athletic ability, but maybe the rugby IQ wasn't there yet.
I mean, look, if you take somebody like Corey Daniel as that sort of person with his physical specimen, we had Duncan Hodge over for the last week as a kicking specialist. He was in the building for us for just helping out with some of our guys, and he actually looked at Corey and he said, you can't believe the player that he saw 3 years ago in Glasgow versus the guy that suddenly is up here now. So, Corey's done an unbelievable job in upskilling himself, and he's he's exactly the kind of person and an example that the American, just give him a little bit of coaching and he goes an awful long way because the physical specimen is there.
You got relationships with the locals there, right? You got Mount St. Mary's and the University of Mary Washington, right? Tell us about that.
I think I really like what I see from the college side of things. I think we've got Mary Washington, south of the city, that is a really good little pipeline. We've got two of our guys now there. Aaron Dumas just transferred across there. We've got Sebastian Sheffman, two of our draftees at University of Mary Washington. So we've been down there a little bit coaching through the fall. And we've been helping out with Mount St. Mary's as well, north of the city. So, the plan for us is to create two kind of academies, as it were, or just like, pipelines for, young Americans or guys coming into America to, come into these two universities, have a look. It gives us a chance to work with them as well, or see them play on a weekly basis throughout the fall. And it gives us a good idea of what's out there, so that when the draft comes, we've got a better understanding of what's in the draft. The levels and gives me a bit of context when I watch games of rugby, from the collegiate system. But yeah, we're excited to kind of work with those universities, and the coaching staff, both of them are great. I've really enjoyed the fall, getting to know them a bit better.
Last year you made the playoffs, right? Is there the pressure to repeat? Has got to be pretty strong, right? And this is a tough league. Yeah. It's a lot of movement in the off season by different teams. You and the Free Jacks, I would say, have the most continuity, and maybe Seattle. What are you looking at in terms of a 6-team Eastern Conference as opposed to a 5-team Western Conference? Would you prefer 5 or 6?
I think 6 is good for us because it's kind of home and away. I know it hasn't worked out exactly as it was last year, but 6 is good for us. We've got some really good rivalries coming up now. New England's always going to be big. Chicago was 2 incredibly close games for us last year. I really like what Anthem have done in terms of their recruitment. They're going to be a real handful this year. NOLA have got a star-studded roster. I mean, the pressure will be on NOLA to perform this year with the roster they've got. But and Miami,
I like what you did there. That was good. That was good. I like what you did
DC.
There.
I'm learning. But no, I think Miami year 2 are going to be a handful. I think the Eastern Conference is going to be pretty strong this year. I just hope that the consistency of our group and the quality of the players that we've got coming in, and that we've also retained, is going to be our point of difference. That's my hope. And
you got Miami beefing up down there as well. So that it's going to be a tough conference. I mean, it's going to be a tough league.
It is.
A lot of parity, a lot of teams making some big strides and improvements. So let's talk about, this is now your second year at the Maryland Soccerplex, right? Which I've been to. I've had the pleasure. And we had a good laugh because when I was doing the PA, you were in the booth next to me, and I thought you were screaming at me to get the crowd going. But there was one of your coaches named Matt, so that was a hoot. But the one practical thing about the Maryland Soccerplex, or not practical, that's the wrong word. The one thing that's characteristic is it's got a lot of wind.
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
It's tough. I mean, it's also diagonal wind as well, without giving away too many trade secrets. But it's a tough place to play. You need a good kicking game, which I feel we have in our 9s are all good kickers. John LaFave's come in this year as well, alongside Ethan and Connor. So we've got good kickers at 9, and we've also got Jason Robertson, who's probably one of the most complete kickers of a ball I've seen for a while. So you've got to have a decent kicking game and a good set piece. And with Rob Harley running around at, in his 300 and something professional game this year, we've got a good leader in that space. So I think our set piece and our kicking game are really important for playing at home. And then once it's sort of, once the weather warms up a little bit and the wind dies down a tad, we've got our attacking game in there too. So I think year 2 at the Soccerplex, we learned a lot from year 1. Our home form wasn't good enough last year, but it is a difficult place to play. And I think year 2, we've got a much better understanding of what we need to do.
And you're at the St. James, which is a spectacular indoor facility for training. So how do you replicate or try to recreate playing in the wind?
Well, we only train in the mornings at St. James. We've been using preseason, so we've run a 5-week preseason. We've had no preseason games. I don't believe that it's the right thing to do for the players. I don't think a 3-week preseason running into 2 preseason games is safe enough. If I'm honest, I need to look after these guys. So we run a 5-week preseason with no preseason games. It just allows us to work a bit harder. So indoors, we work pretty hard on the full field. But then actually, we're outside as of next week, which is where we really start to get the kicking game going. So we only we do our off-feet conditioning and our weights and our wrestling indoors. And actually, we train the majority of the time outside now.
So you mentioned no preseason games, and playing the devil's advocate, I would say Well, don't you want to have preseason games to get the players into game shape or get in that feel? Because hitting in anger, as we say in baseball, when spring training, you're not really hitting in anger, but when you hit in anger. So how do you make up for that?
Well, we make up for it by we will probably tackle more on the wrestling mats. We fight every day. The boys have got an hour's wrestling session Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It's brutal. And we replicate games. We make more tackles and we hit harder in those sessions than we probably would in a game. We call it bulletproofing. It's about just getting the body ready for a brutal sport. And I don't think you can do that in 3 weeks. Because if you think about it, you have 2 preseason games. That week 4 and 5, you're actually getting ready for a game as opposed to getting your battle hardened. And whilst the game itself helps to prepare you for the season, the risks involved in terms of season-long ending injuries or just guys getting hurt because they're not quite ready. I don't think the negatives outweigh the positives for preseason games.
And I would say out of all the coaches in the league, you're the one that's played the most recently. So maybe you have that extra feel for the players and understand what they're going through a little bit more. I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying that. I don't care.
Yeah. I come from a background of 7 or 8 weeks before you play your first game. And I think if you're starting in the beginning of January and then you've got a game 3 weeks later, some of these guys haven't played for 4 or 5 months potentially, or since an NPC season's finished, or even since the MLR season's finished. But we're pretty lucky that all of our boys have been playing in D1. We've had the likes of Colin and Koi have played 11, 12 games of rugby since the end of the season.
Yeah.
They've been in the local community. We've really tried to reconnect with the DMV. All of the coaches in the building have been working with the DMV. All the players have played. And so, they're pretty battle hardened, but I still don't think the 3 weeks is enough for them to get ready for a professional game of rugby, which is what those preseason games are. So, we won't be 100% for Miami, but we'll be pretty close and we'll be ready to go.
All right, Coach, just changing gears before we let you go. I just wanted to give a shout out to my man, Steve Duma Johnson and the RNS Foundation, working with the HBCU, historically black colleges and universities players. I went down to Atlanta for one of their combines. Just wanted to push that envelope a little bit and get more people involved with the HBCU and those.
That's awesome. Duma's he's a good man. He does a lot for the community. So any support we can give him, absolutely 100%.
That's great. And finally, I understand that your wife is now working with the organization.
No, she's not working. She's just helping. She's she's always been a grafter, and she's like, I'm sitting at home not doing very much. I want to do, what can I do? I was like, stay out of my way.
Help out with the franchise.
Or help out with the company. Yeah, no, she's doing bits and pieces with the fans and stuff on match day and stuff like that. But yeah, she's just a bit of a grafter and really just enjoys being part of the club. So
doesn't this added pressure on your shoulders now to perform, right? Because she's going to be at the game. She's going to be like, you know what? We should have kicked there. I don't know why we went. Why did we kick to the corner? We should have kicked for the posts, Simon.
There's more pressure. I feel more pressure from her than I do from Chris and Paul in terms of, she loves America that much. She wants to stay. She's like, you got to get another contract. We've got to win some games of rugby. I don't want to go back to the UK. I feel more pressure from her than I do from Chris and Paul at the moment. So, yeah, she's in a good spot. She's a superstar. She's really embraced being over here, and she's enjoying our adventure, which is great.
That's great. You were referring to Chris Dunleavy and Paul Sheehy, the co-owners. And just one final question. What's the expectation for the team? Playoffs or bust?
The expectation for us is to be better than last year. So yeah, we got to the playoffs last year. It was pretty close at the end. I'd like to think we do a lot better at home this year, which will give us a decent shot to get into those playoffs for sure.
What if you have more wins but don't qualify for the playoffs because it is such a tight division?
It just tells you that the league's getting better. And I tell you what, with the influx of the coaches and some of the players that come in, the MLR is just going from strength to strength. And what's lovely is that you hear a lot more about it back in the UK now. A lot more of my friends and ex-colleagues and stuff, they're all talking about what we're up to. And there's a lot more, particularly with the signing of someone like Steph. A lot of the Welsh are now having a real look at what's going on, and a lot of the Welsh players are asking more about the MLR. So I just think that the standard has gone up. The facilities are great. The crowds are starting to increase. I think this competition is moving from strength to strength.
Well, I'm excited, and you just got me even more psyched up, Coach. Says that you're inspirational. Just being around you for a second. I love it.
Thanks,
So
man.
Thank you, Mr. Simon Cross of Old Glory, DC. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.
All right, we'll be right back with Mr. Bryan Ray, who is chomping and champing at the bit once again after listening to this interview. We'll be right back.
I wouldn't like to be at the bottom of that.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now.
And we're back with Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News at Ray's Rugby on the X/Twitter. Bryan, how are you?
Doing great, Matt. Doing great, and pleased to say I didn't have to charge you a tariff for my appearance fee today. So, there we go. So things looking up.
Wouldn't you be using my goods, so I'd charge you the 50% tariff? Because I'm raising it. I'm doubling it down.
We'll have to discuss this through our agents after the show.
How much is a Tim Hortons donut going to cost me? They're not really imported or exported anymore. They're all over the place. So it's not like the good old days. Anyway, what news, Bryan? What's on the top of your mind? What's on the tip of your tongue?
I hear we're getting close to the start of the regular season, Major League Rugby regular season. Now, normally I would have enjoyed watching preseason game this past weekend, but unfortunately none of them were broadcast, so we just kind of have to take word of mouth as to what happened. But there hasn't really been a lot.
Was there a court stenographer or something with somebody?
Yeah, a couple little match reports written up online, kind of went through, but we really don't have a lot to go on except for some score lines and a couple of rosters. And I went through looking at some pictures and kind of put together, the makings of a couple other rosters. So, we're working our way towards professionalism.
It's mind-numbing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to toe the company line and be as positive as I can be. But when I'm trying to find out about players and they're not on a website, and then you don't even have a team button on a website to even tease me to click on it, and I get that 404 message, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. This is season 8. Come on, everybody. And this is turning in a way I didn't want it to turn. But come on, man. We're trying to do our jobs here. Trying to help, promote. We can't do it if there's nothing on a website. Anyway, this wasn't about what I was thinking. It's about what you're thinking. So let's go back to that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, I guess we should actually talk about, the numbers that we do have and, maybe a couple interesting results. Certainly Houston 38-19 over NOLA. I mean, obviously you're not going to put a lot of stock on a preseason score, but it certainly indicates that Houston's going to be a serious side again this year, which I think we expected. San Diego 40-31 for LA. I think that, kind of is a reminder that, hey, just because LA actually did really well against the Drua doesn't mean they're going to walk all over the Western Conference this season. So certainly that'll be competitive. And, Anthem 30 and Chicago 35, again, kind of reinforces the idea that we had that Anthem is going to be a much better prepared side and a much stronger.
Hold on. How much stock are we taking in these matches?
Again, not a huge amount, but I mean, this wasn't like Chicago 40, Anthem 10 kind of thing, So, I mean, they are competitive at the very least to look at this. But again, it's really hard to make, judgments on this thing when you can't watch the games and you can't get, some qualitative information on this. All we're doing is looking at pure numbers and rosters. So, that's about as much as we can extract, I think, is the kind of hot air that I just threw out.
All right, let's talk about the teams that actually played exhibition matches. Who stands out for you? Anybody in particular?
Well, again, I mean, we've seen one preseason game, and it was the LA versus the Drua match, and certainly LA looked good in that one. So, I mean, what do we really say about the rest of the teams? They played games. That's the most that we can say. We've got once we get through this coming weekend, we've got New England versus Miami, Houston, Chicago. Utah is going to get a game in against San Diego, and Seattle is playing, their feeder club, basically RFC. Old Glory isn't playing any preseason games for the second season in a row. To me, that's concerning. I don't think that was the best decision last year, and I don't think it's going to turn out to be a wise decision again this year, but, that's their decision. So, yeah, so by the end of, this coming weekend, every team will have played at least one preseason game, and, some of them have two. Old Glory, meanwhile, it doesn't have any, so, that's their call, I guess. I don't particularly understand it, but, that's where it is. So I certainly have some concerns as to their preparations heading into the coming season.
And the other thing is too, fans like preseason matches, right? I mean, you get giddy. It's like spring training in baseball. It's like, hey man, grapefruit league or a cactus league or whatever, and you get down there and this, it's probably a little bit more intimate. Not that the MLR isn't intimate to begin with fans and the players. They do a good job of that, but this is even more relaxed, you would think, in an exhibition. Maybe, you don't even have to play in a stadium. You play in a grass field someplace.
Yeah, you can, you see it in Super Rugby a lot. They take it to like local, smaller locations. They reach out to their wider fan base. They give a lot of younger players game time, lots of cycling through players during matches. During a broadcast, it gives you time to maybe pull a player to the side and do one of those, sideline interviews that are, not particularly great during the regular season, doing a real competitive match. But during the preseason, it's totally fine because, you're not really paying super close attention to it, so it's certainly missed opportunities, I think, for fans all around and for teams. And, we can only hope that they look at this in the off season and kind of realize the opportunity that's been missed and take a better crack at it next year.
This is we're talking. We're making content out of non-content, because that's what we're doing here. That's the irony. All right, Bryan, we're winding down. What else you got?
Well, I mean, what else is there to get? It does look like MLR has revamped their website a little bit, so that's good to see. They've got, kind of the shell of something that might be interesting. Hopefully in the next, few days that we have left before the season starts, they can fill that in with a little bit more, robust content on there. But, certainly there are some indications that something is happening there. So, I'm just hoping that once we actually get into this season, that we'll actually feel like we're in the season, like we're supposed to, and then, everything kind of falls into place where it is. And, lots of work still to do. And, I mean, we've been saying it for the past couple of weeks, a little bit of frustration heading into this one, but, we'll get there, I guess.
And I just want to say, if you're struggling with the technology, you're struggling with websites, you're struggling with apps, contact the Seawolves. The Seawolves seem to have it all figured out. Contact them and help them, and let them help you, because us fans, us pundits, we need the intel, we need the info. We want to gravitate toward a website, not gravitate away from a website. All right, I'm beating a dead horse, and I apologize. Just a little frustrated. But Bryan, final thought before we let you go. Good. All right. On that note, thanks to Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Thanks to John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, Mr. Simon Cross, the head coach of Old Glory, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out the critically acclaimed The Rugby Odds. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. Tell your friends about us. And please join our American Red Cross blood donor team.